Welcome back, and thank you for tuning into Midnight Affairs Tales. We appreciate every single one of you. We'd love to know what part of the world you are watching from right now. Let us know in the comments. Now let's dive into today's story, Chapter 1. I think you need help, Nate. Real help. You are not. Well, that is what my wife said to me the night before our 7th anniversary. Her voice was calm. Too calm. Her hands folded like she was in a courtroom. Not a marriage. I remember standing in our kitchen frozen. I had just come back from work, carrying a small velvet box I had hidden in my glove compartment for a week. Inside it was a locket engraved with her late mother's handwriting. I thought it would make her cry happy tears. She cried, all right, but not the kind I expected. You are imagining things again, she said. The paranoia is getting worse. Paranoia? She meant the questions. The where were you, baby? And the why did your gym session take 3 hours? The who is texting you at 2:14 a.m. questions. She had started labeling concern as obsession. And then came the final blow. I booked you a therapy appointment. It's time we face this head on. She handed me a business card. Dr. Jordan Bell, clinical therapist, trauma and relationships. I looked at her and said nothing. I just nodded. But in my head, something snapped. Not in rage. Not in fear. In silence. Because suddenly, I was not confused anymore. I was certain. She was cheating on me. And I was about to walk into the lion's den she built, with clean hands, but a sharp memory. Wait, if this story gave you chills or made you think twice about trust, don't just scroll away. Hit that like button to support the channel, and subscribe if you never want to miss another jaw-dropping tale. We drop new stories every week that'll leave you speechless. To everyone who's already subscribed, sending you heartfelt love and thanks. Join the family, because here, every story hits different. Now, let's dive back into the story. There is a saying in the Marines, do not react. Respond. I had spent 4 years of my life learning how to read body language, navigate lies, and stay alive under pressure. And now I was using those skills at the breakfast table with my own wife. Her name was Kelsey. Kindergarten teacher. Sunday wine nights. Always had a cause she championed, saving stray cats, planting rooftop gardens, you name it. To the outside world, she was golden. The kind of woman neighbors waved to. The kind who made cinnamon rolls for new moms on the block. But lately, something had shifted. She had started dressing differently. More heels. More perfume. Less eye contact. She was always smiling at her phone. But never when I walked in. And somehow, I was the one being told I was broken. The first session with Dr. Bell felt like a firing squad disguised as a couch. He was calm, soft-voiced. He smiled like someone who thought he already knew me. So, Nate, he began. Why do you think you are here? I wanted to say, because my wife is gaslighting me. But I swallowed it. I think I have been different since I left the military. I do not trust easily. I get anxious. He nodded like he had heard that exact speech before. Maybe he had. Maybe from her. Because by session 3, he was asking about my temper, my need to control, my inability to let go of unfounded suspicions. And still, he had never once mentioned her behavior. That is when I knew. This was not therapy. This was a setup. And I was going to treat it like a mission. Dr. Bell had perfect posture and a tone like silk. He never interrupted. Never judged. But the way he asked about Kelsey was too casual to be neutral. How is Kelsey adjusting to you being home full-time? Do you think she feels safe with your suspicions? Every question was a bullet wrapped in cotton. But I played the role. I spoke softly, took the worksheets, did the emotional exercises. I even cried once on command. I was not just a Marine. I was an actor now, because I needed to find the truth. And then it happened. A Friday night, I told Kelsey I had signed up for an extra session. She smiled and kissed me on the cheek. Proud of you, she whispered. But I never went. Instead, I parked across the street from Dr. Bell's office, turned off the engine, waited. 40 minutes later, I saw her car pull up. Kelsey. Not with me. Not for a couple's session. She walked inside with a tote bag and came out 2 hours later, smiling, laughing. Her lipstick smeared just a little. Her phone still untouched. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. That was not therapy. And he was not just a therapist. He was my enemy. And she had been sleeping with the man who was paid to fix me. The second week into therapy, I found a file I was not supposed to see. Kelsey had left her laptop open in the kitchen while she showered. I was not looking for anything. I was just trying to find the grocery list we usually shared on a document. Instead, I found a folder titled J. Bell, Private Notes. Inside were PDF transcripts, session summaries. Not mine. Hers. Dr. Bell was not just her therapist, too. He had been hers long before me. Months, maybe longer. One line shattered the oxygen in my lungs. Patient reports continued anxiety around husband's return from active duty. Expresses fear about emotional volatility. Strongly advised couples therapy before escalation. Escalation? I had never raised my voice. Never slammed a door. Never broken a plate. I served my country and came back to build a life, not burn one. I kept reading. Patient expressed guilt about emotional intimacy with third party. Clinician advised withholding disclosure until safety is confirmed. Third party. So, they were not just covering it up. He was helping her manage it. Clinically, I closed the file, copied everything to a flash drive, deleted my tracks. The betrayal did not just belong to her anymore. Now, it was professional, tactical, and I was going to dismantle both of them. The next few days, I lived in dual mode, husband by day, operative by night. I watched her schedule tighten. Her gym visits became oddly timed. Her school meetings stretched late. Her outfits leaned sexier, bolder, unlike her usual earthy simplicity. But she never looked me in the eye anymore when she said goodbye. So I tested it. One Thursday, I told her I would be staying late at a Marine buddy's place, helping fix a truck. She smiled too quickly, hugged me tighter than normal. I circled back an hour later and parked near our street. 10 minutes after I left, she left too. Not in gym clothes. Not with her school bag. She was wearing a dress I had never seen before, green satin, high slit. Her hair curled, her heels red. I followed from a block behind. She did not go to any restaurant. She drove to a small, private office space downtown, one floor above a bookstore. Dr. Jordan Bell's name was etched on the frosted glass. She buzzed in. He let her up. I waited. 2 hours passed. When she came out, her lipstick was faint. Her laugh was light. Her phone never left her purse. My phone, however, had already taken 3 photos. Time-stamped. Location tagged. I did not cry. I did not scream. I just stared at the wheel and asked myself one question. How long had they been laughing at me behind my back? And worse, what else were they planning? It happened by accident. I had just finished syncing our home Wi-Fi with a new router and noticed her iMessages were still connected to our old iMac. She must have forgotten. Or maybe she never assumed I would check. But curiosity, no, survival, made me open it. Her texts were synced. So were the images. But one chat stood out. JNB Weekly. I clicked. There were only 3 people in the group. Kelsey, Jordan, saved with a lock emoji. A third number, saved as redfox_6. I opened the chat thread. redfox_6. He is losing grip. Time to push therapy harder. Kelsey, he cried today. Jordan, you were right. He is starting to doubt himself. Jordan, stay calm. If he gets too reactive, we can document for mental instability. Play long game. I stopped breathing. This was not just an affair. This was orchestration. Manipulation. They were setting me up to look insane. To ruin me legally. And if I had not seen that text thread, they might have succeeded. I exported the entire chat to my private drive. Then I disconnected everything. Shut down the iMac. Deleted all signs. She would never know what I knew. But from this point on, every word, every glance, every hug was a battlefield. I was done being the patient. Now, I was the predator. I had not worn my dog tags since returning home, but I found myself gripping them now like a compass in a fog. Observation. Patience. Calculation. It was time to stop being a husband and start being a soldier again. That night, Kelsey came home humming. She wore that same green dress, but now it was crumpled at the hem and missing one earring. Long staff meeting, she said, dropping her keys into the bowl by the door. The school board is losing its mind. I nodded. Rough day. She walked over, kissed my cheek, and said, I missed you today. My hands itched to pull out my phone and show her the photos. The group chat. The lies. But I smiled instead and kissed her forehead. I missed you too, because now I was watching. Every breath she took, every pause in her story, every nervous swallow when I asked, Do you love me? Of course I do, she said too quickly, before even looking up. She had been trained well by Belle, but so had I by fire, not textbooks. That weekend, I set up motion sensors on our front door. Just a small modification, barely noticeable. I synced the camera feed directly to a burner phone she did not know existed. It was no longer about suspicion. It was evidence. Proof for lawyers. For the state board. For whoever needed to know what kind of woman stood in my kitchen saying, I am proud of you for trying therapy, babe. And me? I was done trying. Now I was recording. The next session with Dr. Bell was a masterclass in manipulation. He greeted me with his usual warm smile, hands folded like a preacher about to confess someone else's sins. How are things between you and Kelsey since our last session? I looked him dead in the eyes. Better. I think the crying helped. He leaned forward. Emotional release is progress. That is good, Nate. Very good. I wanted to spit, but I nodded instead. He gave me a worksheet, 20 questions titled Emotional Ownership and Thought Accountability. Number 5 read, Write about a moment you felt possessive or suspicious. What was the underlying fear? The underlying fear? That my wife and my therapist were using my trauma as camouflage. I filled the paper out in front of him, every answer laced with what he wanted to hear. Insecure. Lonely. Trying to change. His face lit up like a proud parent. See? This is who you really are underneath all that rigidity, he said. Someone who wants to heal. He did not notice my eyes. Cold. Focused. Unblinking. Because as he preached trust, I was recording his voice with a wrist mic and tracing every word. He slipped once, barely. You have to remember, he said, Kelsey is scared too. This is hard for her. I froze. She told you that? He paused. Smiled. In general terms. From a clinical standpoint. Wrong answer. Because now I had what I needed. A licensed therapist referencing his patient's private words during another patient's session. I kept nodding. But in my head, the mission parameters had changed. They were not just betraying me. They were building a file. One they thought they could use against me. And I was going to burn it before they ever got the chance. That night, I watched her through the hallway reflection. She sat on the couch, legs crossed, wine glass in hand. Her eyes locked on her phone like it held sacred scripture. The screen would light up. She would smile, then swipe it away and reply quickly. Not once did she look my way. I stood in the kitchen doorway for 5 full minutes before clearing my throat. She jumped, clutched the phone tight. You scared me. Sorry. Just getting water. She nodded too quickly and flipped the phone screen down. Rookie mistake. Kelsey used to leave her phone anywhere. Bathroom sink. Coffee table. Nightstand. Now it was an extension of her skin. Later that night, while she slept, I reached under the bed and pulled out the clone device. I had mirrored her data 3 days ago using a technique Pete taught me during our recon training, Bluetooth hijack via a synced watch. Took 30 seconds. Left no trace. At 2:41 a.m., a text came in. Jordan, same time Friday? My office. Red Fox will be there. We need to move soon. Move where? I scrolled back. Dozens of texts. Flirty ones. Strategic ones. Legal-sounding ones. And one photo. My handwriting. A page from my therapy worksheet. Scanned. Shared. They were collecting proof of my instability. And I finally understood. They were going to push for a psychiatric evaluation. Maybe even legal action. Maybe divorce. Maybe worse. I stared at her sleeping face. So peaceful. So poisonous. And I realized they were not just cheating on me. They were trying to erase me. The messages kept coming. Friday, Saturday, even Sunday morning while she made French toast and hummed an off-key Billie Eilish song like nothing was wrong. Her phone buzzed against the countertop. She reached for it faster than she reached for the spatula. I was sitting across from her, pretending to read the news. But really, I was watching the sync on my hidden device, word for word, moment by moment. Red Fox _6. Court papers are ready if he reacts. Just say you feel unsafe. Jordan, tell him he forgot to take his meds again. That will confuse him. Kelsey, he is getting quiet. I think it is working. Quiet. They thought my silence was surrender. That made me smile into my coffee. Because silence is what we were trained to use before we strike. I saved screenshots. Every one of them. Each thread exported into a folder titled K0, Bell plus Kelsey. But what chilled me to my core was this line. Kelsey. He was crying during the last session. God, it was almost sad. Jordan. He will break before he fights. They always do. They. That word confirmed something I had not dared to believe before. This was not about love, or even betrayal. This was a strategy, a system, maybe something they had done before, which meant I was not the first, but I sure as hell was going to be the last. On Tuesday, Kelsey said she was going to a women's empowerment dinner with her old college roommate. I offered to drive her. She hesitated. No need, babe. It is a private thing. Just us girls. I smiled. Sounds good. Have fun. But 20 minutes after she left, I got in my truck and tailed her. No rush. No lights. Just like we were trained to do in the field. She did not go to the city center, or a restaurant, or a friend's house. She drove to a private office park and parked in the shadows. I recognized the car that pulled up beside her before he even stepped out. Dr. Bell. He wore casual slacks and no tie. His body language was relaxed, comfortable, like this was routine. She opened the door and let him in. They sat there for 15 minutes. No movement. Then both doors opened, and they headed inside, his office again. I did not move. I just set the long lens camera on the dash, aimed it, and let the shutter click. Click, click, click. The timestamps were solid. So were the photos. And the final one? A perfect frame of them inside the building, through the glass, his hand on her waist. The camera did not lie, but what made my blood turn to ice was her expression. It was not nervous. It was not guilty. It was joy. Like betrayal was not a burden, but a reward. Wednesday's therapy session was like sitting across from a magician trying to pull a rabbit out of a hat he had already shown me. Dr. Bell leaned back in his chair, eyes soft, voice smooth. So, Nate, how have the thoughts been this week? Calmer, I said. I have been trying to give Kelsey the benefit of the doubt. That is progress. He smiled. But I do wonder, do you think Kelsey feels like she can be herself with me? His lips twitched. Well, that depends on how safe she feels emotionally. People with trauma often miss signals. I see. And you would know what makes her feel safe. He hesitated. Just a second. But I saw it. I only know what she has shared clinically. Of course. I stared at the window behind him, the reflection clear as glass. I could see his hands tightening slightly in his lap. He was uncomfortable. Good. I leaned forward. I want to thank you, by the way. For what? For helping me see things clearly. He smiled again, but this time it did not reach his eyes. Session ended. I stood, shook his hand, and whispered just low enough for him to lean in. I know everything, Jordan. His face froze, just for a flash. But it was enough. I walked out without another word. Down the stairs. Into the street. Into my truck. My hands did not shake. My breath was steady. Because I had confirmed the truth, not with evidence, but with reaction. His calm had cracked. And soon, so would everything else. The first thing I did after walking out of that session was drive to Fort Bragg. Not to report anything. Not yet. But to see Pete. Pete Weston was not just a buddy. He was the one guy in our unit who could make a dead laptop spill its soul in 10 minutes. Now he worked cyber intel for military contractors, gray hat jobs, stuff they do not print on business cards. I bought him a drink. Told him the truth. Not all of it. Just enough. He leaned back in the booth, eyes scanning the bar. So your therapist is sleeping with your wife and using your trauma against you in therapy? I nodded once. He whistled under his breath. Damn, Nate. You sure about this? I pulled out a USB drive and handed it over. Messages, audio, screenshots. Confirm it. He slid it into his jacket without another word. 3 days later, I got a text. Pete, he is using encrypted chat. 2 phones, hidden backups, and he is not just seeing your wife. I called him. What do you mean? I mean your boy Bell's got 3 active female clients who all follow the same digital trail, encrypted messages, burner apps, and unusually long private sessions. 2 of them are married. My chest tightened. He is running a loop, Pete said. A pattern. Maybe even blackmail. That was the line. The ethical line. The legal line. The line between betrayal and predation. And I knew now, this was not just about me. It was about all of us. That night, Kelsey sat across from me at dinner, smiling like everything was back to normal. Therapy is helping you, she said sweetly, twirling her pasta like a scene from a movie. You are calmer. Softer. It feels like us again. I nodded, chewing slow. You think so? I really do. You seem lighter. That word, lighter. I had been carrying the weight of their betrayal, their lies, their manipulation for weeks. And now they thought I had surrendered. That was her mistake. Maybe I needed to hit bottom, I said quietly. She reached across the table and touched my hand. You are doing the work, and I love you for it. I wanted to scream. I wanted to flip the table and throw the camera roll into her face and say, you love me? While you sleep with my therapist. While you text him to strategize against me like I am some broken code to crack. But I smiled. Because I needed her to keep smiling. Let her feel safe. Let her lie. Every moment she believed I was fooled gave me more time to build my case. After dinner, I watched her step into the shower. She hummed again, and I opened my laptop to check the second phone's cloud sync. New message. Kelsey, he is buying it. We are almost free. Almost free. I exhaled through my nose. She had no idea. Session 8. Bell's office. The air smelled like peppermint oil and betrayal. He looked at me like a proud mentor. Nate, your growth over these weeks, it is noticeable. I stayed quiet. He leaned in. You have done something many men with your background cannot. You have let go. I stared straight ahead. You think I am letting go? I do. I turned to him. Calm. Dead calm. What would you do if your patient lied to you, Jordan? He blinked. Excuse me. I mean, say your patient was dishonest. Hid something big. Would that ruin the therapeutic bond? He cleared his throat. Trust is everything in this space. So if I lied to you, you would feel betrayed? Of course. I nodded. Got it. Silence stretched between us. Then he cleared his throat again and said, Nate, are you feeling paranoid again? There it was. The trap. The script. The moment he would mark something down in a file and use it later in court. I smiled. No, not at all. I am just curious about boundaries. He shifted uncomfortably. Well, that is a good question to explore. Maybe for our next session. I stood up slowly, walked to the door, my hand on the knob. Then I turned back and said, You are good at lying with your mouth, Jordan. But your eyes? They twitch when you are scared. He said nothing, but his jaw flexed. And I walked out knowing he was no longer in control of this narrative. I was. There was a kind of peace that came after war, not the kind born from forgiveness, but the silence that follows when the enemy has already been marked. I was there now. Kelsey thought I had softened, that therapy was working, that I was on my knees, blindly grateful she had stood by me. But what she did not know was that I had begun recording every single session with Dr. Bell. Each one, audio, video, synced and backed up in 3 different drives, one in my truck, one with Pete, and one in a digital vault connected to a lawyer I had already met twice. Because I was not just preparing for a confrontation. I was preparing for the fallout. I started laying down traps, softly, slowly. I asked Kelsey questions over dinner. Do you think people change after betrayal? Or What would you do if you found out someone was hiding something important from you? Her answers were always vague, lighthearted, measured. I matched her tone, smiled through my teeth. Every now and then, she would say, I feel like we are getting back to who we were. And I would think, no, we are becoming who we never were. I see you now. I told her I wanted to book a special therapy session, one with both of them. To thank you, I said, for pushing me. Her eyes sparkled, and the stage was set. It was a Thursday afternoon when we sat across from each other in that beige, softly lit office. Me, Kelsey, Jordan Bell. The camera was hidden behind the vent cover. Pete had installed it himself 2 nights earlier under the pretense of AC maintenance. The audio recorder was inside my watch, calibrated to pick up whisper-level noise. Dr. Bell opened the session with his usual velvet voice. Today, I want to celebrate Nate's progress. Kelsey, you mentioned how supported you feel lately. Can you expand on that? She smiled, crossed her legs. He is finally seeing things clearly. For the first time in years. I turned to her. What do you mean by that? Her eyes flicked to Jordan, then back to me. Just emotionally. You are less reactive. Bell nodded. That is true. We have done a lot of deep emotional reframing. Reframing, I echoed. Is that what you two were doing the night I followed her to your office? Dead silence. Jordan's smile twitched, but he recovered. Nate, maybe we should take a breath. These kinds of suspicions, no, I said. Let us keep the air clear. I turned to Kelsey. You said we are getting stronger. So tell me, why is my personal therapy worksheet saved on your burner phone? Her mouth opened, then shut. Belle finally leaned forward. I think this is becoming confrontational. I looked at my watch. So is this. I clicked the side twice. The vent cover popped open. A red light blinked. Jordan's face went pale. I turned my phone screen toward them, showing the synced footage. Kelsey. In Jordan's lap. Last Friday. The timestamp was clear. The silence in that room could have cracked the earth. You played me, I said. But I learned from the best. And then I stood up, collected my files, and walked out the door. Because in that moment, I was no longer the broken one. They were. The aftermath was brutal and perfectly orchestrated. That same night, Pete uploaded the footage to 3 private drives. I handed one copy to my lawyer, along with a written statement and timeline. She told me, this is more than infidelity. This is malpractice. Within 48 hours, Dr. Bell was served an official inquiry from the State Psychological Board. His license was under immediate review. But I was not finished. Kelsey tried to confront me at home, but I had changed the locks. I met her in the driveway, voice calm, eyes empty. You destroyed our marriage, she hissed. Over one mistake? One mistake. I repeated. You built a 3-month lie with a man who was paid to fix me. Tears welled in her eyes. I never meant for it to go this far. I tilted my head, but it did. I handed her a phone. Play this. It was the audio from one of their post-session conversations, recorded by the burner phone she had hidden in her tote bag and forgotten to turn off. Jordan, he is buying it. When he snaps, we can document it. Courts love documented patterns. Kelsey, do you think he suspects? Jordan, let him. The more paranoid he gets, the easier it is to call it PTSD. She stopped the recording with shaking fingers. I trusted you, I said. I gave you my whole damn life. She tried to speak, but her voice cracked into a sob. I turned and walked back into the house, leaving her standing there in the dark, the evidence of her own cruelty echoing from a tiny speaker. I never expected the tip-off to come from Brent, the guy from accounting with messy hair, a weird obsession with fantasy football, and a painfully awkward laugh. He walked up to me 2 days after the recording dropped. You got a sec? He asked. I was darting like he had stolen a secret from the Pentagon. I nodded. What is up? He pulled out his phone and tapped it a few times. I did not want to get involved, man, but I saw something I think you should know. On screen, a forum, private, hidden behind a password wall. It was a sugar baby website, and Kelsey's face was front and center. Profile name, Pedal North. Caption, compassionate, mature. I understand powerful men need to be heard. Discretion is everything. Attached were photos. Not stolen. Posed. Professional looking. Different cities. Different outfits. Brent swallowed hard. I was scrolling for research, and I saw her. She is verified. She has been active for months. I stared at the screen. This was not a one-time affair. This was a side hustle. A double life. You good, man? Brent asked. Yeah, I said. Thanks. But I was not good. I was done. Done being cautious. Done being subtle. Done pretending this was just a bad marriage. Because now, this was fraud. That night, I opened my laptop and cross-referenced her email from the sugar site with her personal PayPal records. 2 accounts. 1 business. Thousands of dollars transferred in the last 6 months. All marked. Consultation, wellness coaching, emotional mentorship. It was money laundering under the mask of therapy. I pulled up photos from the burner phone, screenshots of Jordan Bell's Venmo transactions. He had sent her money too. Descriptions like session coverage and wellness fee. They were not even trying to hide it. They thought I was stupid enough to fall apart and quiet down. But they forgot I was trained for intelligence. My silence was never surrender. It was strategy. The next day, I went to a different kind of therapist, Dr. Karen Alvarez. Board certified. 10 years in ethical clinical practice. No ties to Bell. I laid out the photos. The transcripts. The payment records. She read through it like a lawyer reading a confession. This is catastrophic, she said. This violates every ethical boundary. If you're ready, we need to go to the state board. Officially. I am ready, I said. And with that, we filed the complaint. Anonymous for now, but undeniable. She took the evidence. And Jordan Bell's career timer began ticking. I had not touched the burner phone in days, not since Kelsey stood in our driveway with her mascara streaking down her face, holding her lies in her hands. But I knew it still had more to tell me. So I charged it. Scrolled through its memory. She had used it to message Jordan, but not just him. There was another name. Mackenzie R. I clicked the thread. Kelsey, he is getting quiet again. You think it is time? Mackenzie, has he mentioned legal stuff? Kelsey, no. He is being controlled. It is almost creepy. Mackenzie, play the victim. Document everything. If it goes bad, you can push for a restraining order. Maybe court sympathy. Play the victim. Mackenzie R. was not just a friend. She was a coach. Someone teaching Kelsey how to weaponize victimhood. A few more clicks revealed screenshots, photos of my journal entries, some real, some forged. She was building a case. A false narrative. And the phone had all of it. I copied every file, backed it up in 4 encrypted drives. Then I placed the phone in a small, black box, wrapped it, labeled it, and mailed it to the state board. Certified. Anonymous sender. No fingerprints. Because when you fight fire with fire, you do not just burn back. You burn everything they built. Kelsey walked into the kitchen like it was any other Saturday morning. She wore her favorite gray robe, the one with a missing belt loop and coffee stains on the sleeve, and hummed like someone whose sins were sleeping peacefully. Want eggs? She asked, pouring herself a cup of almond milk. I sat at the kitchen island with my laptop open, the burner phone laid flat next to it like a detonator. No thanks, I said, eyes never leaving the screen. She walked behind me and rested her hands on my shoulders. You know, she said, it feels good again. Like we are working. Working? I asked. Us, she said. You and me. This thing. I turned my head slowly and met her eyes. I am filing for divorce, I said flatly. She blinked. Her hand slipped off my shoulder. What? I said I am done. Lawyer has everything. The board has everything. And now, so do you. I slid a small manila envelope across the counter. Inside were printed screenshots of the texts between her, Jordan, and Mackenzie. A still photo from the hidden office cam. A receipt of the complaint submitted to the state licensing board. Her hand trembled as she opened it. You have been reading my messages? She whispered. I stood up. No. I have been surviving your sabotage. She looked up at me, face blank, like her world had just inverted. I was trying to protect myself by framing me? I snapped. By feeding my therapist lies and documenting my breakdown so you could call it a pattern? Silence. Tell Jordan I will see him in court, I said. And I suggest you get a real lawyer, not a life coach. I walked past her. The eggs burned on the pan behind her. She never moved. Revenge is best served slow. And sometimes, in a black suit, under fairy lights, with shrimp cocktails and an open bar. My company's end-of-quarter gala had been on the books for weeks. Kelsey knew the date. She had even RSVP'd herself as my +1 before everything fell apart. But she did not know I had requested a new guest under her name, Dr. Jordan Bell. His invitation arrived via email, custom-branded, with my company's letterhead, and a message that read, "In recognition of your outstanding work in mental health." He could not resist the bait. When he walked in, I was standing near the open bar. I saw him before he saw me. Charcoal suit, polished shoes, his signature smirk. Kelsey hung off his arm like a trophy with a cracked base. They looked around, expecting praise. What they got was whispers. Because earlier that day, I had sent a discreet folder to our HR department. It contained a summary of the allegations, Bell's ethical violations, and a few select images. Just enough to ensure that if anyone Googled his name mid-party, the storm would begin. People were already watching. Phones out. Thumbs tapping. Bell approached me. "You invited me?" I nodded. "Sure did. Thought you would like the spotlight." Kelsey's smile faded as she scanned the room, realizing they were not being admired. They were being observed. I leaned in. Smile wide. "Doc, you are about to go viral." And I walked away toward the stage where the mic waited. The host introduced me with polite applause. One of our own, Nate Carson, will share a few words. I stepped up, took the mic. The lights hit me clean. My heart beat once, hard, then went still. "Thank you all," I began. "I am honored to speak tonight, not just as a team member, but as someone who has had to learn a lot about truth, about betrayal, and about what it means to reclaim your name." Kelsey shifted near the bar. Jordan's arms crossed over his chest. "I came back from military service hoping for peace," I said. "Instead, I came home to lies, carefully constructed ones, told by people who were supposed to help, heal, love." The room grew still. "Some of those people are here tonight," I said, locking eyes with Jordan across the crowd. "And they are not here to be celebrated. They are here to be seen for what they really are." Gasps. Phone cameras. A few gasped whispers. "That is him? The therapist?" "I will not name names," I said, "because I do not need to." I stepped down from the stage, handed the mic back, and walked out into the night. Let the fallout begin. I did not need to swing hard. I had already cut deep. By Monday morning, the video was already spreading. Someone at the gala had filmed my speech and uploaded it with the caption, "Marine exposes cheating wife and therapist, live." Over 200,000 views in 24 hours. People in the office whispered less now, they stared. Some offered pats on the shoulder. Others nodded in silence. But the message was clear, they knew. And I was not the one they pitted. But the real damage started when the state board replied. Subject: Jordan Bell, license investigation update. Status: suspended pending review allegations, ethical breach, dual relationships, unreported financial transactions with clients, patient exploitation. I stared at the email like it was a dog tag. Proof that even polished predators bleed when exposed to light. At 3:14 p.m., I received a call from an unknown number. I almost ignored it until a woman's voice came through, sharp and controlled. "Nate Carson?" "Yes. This is attorney Carol Sloan. You do not know me, but I represent 2 former clients of Dr. Jordan Bell. Women with similar stories to yours. Would you be willing to join a class action suit?" I leaned back in my chair, exhaled slow. "Yes," I said. "Yes, I would." She replied, "Good. You are not the first. But if we do this right, you might be the last." And just like that, this was no longer just personal. It was war. It did not take long. Kelsey's school received the same evidence the licensing board had: transcripts, audio files, financial receipts, all linked to a cloud folder titled Unethical Affairs, Protected by Lies. Her principal called her in. She never returned to the classroom. A neighbor saw her crying in the driveway 2 days later, packing her car with boxes, her phone blowing up in her back pocket. The same social media that once loved her yoga reels and recipe tips was now flooded with comments like, "Sleeping with your husband's therapist? Disgusting. Gaslighting a war veteran. Well, you do not deserve forgiveness. You deserve exposure." Kelsey deleted all her accounts by Friday, but the damage was done. Even her parents, once cold to me, sent a message. Not an apology, but a whisper of shame. "We raised her better than this. We are sorry for what you went through." I did not reply, because I was not looking for closure. I was watching her fall under the weight of her own lies. She texted me that night. Just one line. "You got what you wanted." I looked at the screen, let it sit, then replied, "No, I got what I earned. What you wanted was a cover-up. What you got was the truth." I blocked her after that. For good. I thought it was over. The exposure, the fallout, the consequences. But the real twist came in the form of a manila envelope, dropped off at my front door on a Sunday morning. No return address. No stamp. Inside were legal documents. A lawsuit, filed against me, by Jordan Bell, claiming defamation, emotional distress, career sabotage. I almost laughed, until I flipped to the witness list. Mackenzie R., Kelsey Carson. They were teaming up, trying to flip the narrative, claiming I had falsified records, that I had coerced Kelsey into confessing lies, that I had manipulated therapy sessions to fit a paranoid fantasy. They were building a case against me. For a second, my vision blurred, because this was not just a final swipe. This was a trap. But what they did not know, I had already set mine first, and the bait was about to bite back. They wanted a courtroom battle? Perfect. Because by the time Jordan filed his defamation suit, I had already submitted my name to the lead attorney heading the class action lawsuit against him. We were 10 now. 10 victims. All different faces, stories, and timelines, but the same pattern. A therapist who blurred lines, used power like a blade, abused trust, then hid behind degrees and credentials. Our attorney, Carol Sloan, was brilliant. Ice in her veins, fire in her eyes. "He is playing offense because he is cornered," she told us during our virtual meet. But what he does not realize is that we are building a fortress while he throws stones. I showed her the lawsuit Jordan had filed against me. She smiled. "We will counter it. Publicly." That week, she filed a motion to unseal the previous complaints filed against Bell, ones that had been quietly buried before. And suddenly, Jordan's clean image began to rot under daylight. News outlets picked it up. Therapists sued by veterans and victims alike. Kelsey's name was in it too. Guilty by association. Complicit by choice. The story was no longer about a bitter ex-husband. It was about a predator's downfall, sparked by the man they thought would break. I called Pete again. This time, I was not asking for favors. I was enlisting him. We built a data timeline, a digital blueprint of everything Jordan had done. Email headers, call metadata, VPN access points, digital trails Kelsey and Mackenzie thought were wiped. They were not. We tracked overlapping IP addresses, timestamps that aligned with therapy sessions, and money movements that formed a web no lawyer could ignore. Carol's team took it and built an airtight case. But we added one more layer. A trap. We sent a fake email, masked as a panicked ex-client threatening to go public. Within 48 hours, Jordan replied, "This is harassment. Do not contact me again. If this goes legal, we will make sure he looks unhinged." He used the same phrase he had used about me in Kelsey's chat log months ago. The arrogance never left him. Only now, it was writing his own ending. It came faster than I expected. The state board, after reviewing the evidence and hearing testimony from 6 former clients, reached a decision. License suspended. Permanent revocation pending further action. Bell's response. A half-hearted statement on social media blaming a coordinated smear campaign led by a disgruntled ex-patient. It backfired. The comments lit up like firecrackers. "You manipulated veterans. You're done, Doc. We believe the victims." Sponsors dropped. Clinic shut down. The man who once preached mental healing through trust was now trending for all the wrong reasons. And Kelsey? She posted a single Instagram story before deleting her account again. A black screen with 3 words, "I messed up." No apology. No explanation. Just guilt. But guilt does not erase consequence. And consequence was just beginning. She showed up at my door at 8:16 p.m. unannounced, wearing a hoodie and jeans, no makeup, looking more like a memory than a person. "I need 5 minutes," she said, voice shaking. I did not invite her in. I stood in the doorway. She looked smaller than I remembered, less certain. "I lost everything," she whispered. "My job, my reputation, my future." I said nothing. She glanced at the ground. "You were right. About all of it. I was just so scared you would leave me once you saw who I really was." I leaned against the doorframe. "You didn't show me who you were, Kelsey. You tried to rewrite who I was." A long pause. "I thought Jordan was the answer," she said, eyes glossy. "I thought he was safe." "No," I replied. "He was just a better liar than you." She nodded, said nothing for a moment longer, then turned to walk away. She stopped halfway down the steps and asked, without turning around, "Do you hate me?" I did not answer, because hate would mean I still cared, and that chapter had already closed. There was one last piece of this story that had not been dealt with. The journal. Not the burner phone. Not the cloud files. Not the hidden recordings. The handwritten notebook I had started in my lowest moment, when I thought I was broken, paranoid, unstable. When I was still buying the idea that I was the villain in my own home. I found it in the bottom drawer of my bedside table. Covered in dust, the corners folded from nights I clutched it too tightly in fear. I flipped through it, page by page. Today, I watched her walk out the door and wondered if I'd ever be enough. Belle says I need to take responsibility. But why do I feel like I'm the only one bleeding? I miss who she pretended to be. Every word was an old scar, and I had outgrown them. I walked outside, lit the fire pit, and dropped the notebook into the flames. Watched the pages curl. Watched my old self disappear. Not with bitterness, with release. Because closure is not something someone gives you. It is something you burn for yourself. The final meeting was quiet. No lawyers in the room. Just me, Kelsey, and a mediator to make it official. She looked exhausted, like someone who had been running a marathon in circles. When she signed the papers, her hand trembled. She did not cry. She just stared at the signature like it did not belong to her anymore. "You kept the house?" she asked. I nodded. "I left it to you in the original draft," she added. I said nothing. She folded the last page and whispered, "You really loved me, didn't you?" I looked her dead in the eyes. "I would have taken a bullet for you." She nodded slowly, and I let someone else pull the trigger. Silence. Then she stood up, walked out of the conference room, and never looked back. The door clicked shut behind her. And just like that, it was over. A month later, I left the city, sold the house, packed only what I needed, traded concrete for pine trees, Wi-Fi signals for mountain air, moved to a quiet place outside Asheville, where the air stung in winter and the silence was not so loud it hurt. My first morning there, I woke up without an alarm. No panic. No tension in my chest. No mental checklist of what lie I would need to pretend to believe that day. I stepped outside and stood barefoot on the porch. Birds. Breeze. Peace. I brewed black coffee and sat by the window with a book I had bought but never opened. It was not about starting over. It was about starting right. I got a message that day from a guy I had never met. Another victim of Belle's. Someone who had seen the news, read the lawsuit, and realized he was not crazy after all. "I thought I was the only one," he wrote. "Thanks for blowing the door open." I replied simply, "Blow yours open too. It is your turn now." I spent my nights walking the ridge trail, just outside the edge of the woods. The air turned cooler after sundown, crisp enough to sting the lungs in a good way. No texts, no alarms, no footsteps behind me, just quiet. And this time, it was not a warning sign. It was peace. One night, I reached the top of the trail and sat on the bench facing west, over the valleys, over everything I had left behind. I pulled out my phone. Not to record. Not to trace. Just to delete the last folder. Case 0. Bell plus Kelsey. I held my thumb over the screen, took a breath, and erased it. Gone. Not because I had forgotten, but because I had finally healed. And the silence? The silence was beautiful. The lawsuit made headlines for weeks. Jordan Bell's name was blacklisted from every clinic in the tri-state area. Kelsey's silence online had become permanent. The world kept moving, but echoes from that chaos still reached me. In the form of letters, emails, DMs, handwritten notes. From strangers. People who had been in therapy rooms they never escaped. Marriages that were held together by silence and shame. Veterans who had been told their trauma made them liars. One man wrote, "I thought no one would believe me. Watching your story gave me the courage to tell my wife the truth about what happened with our counselor. I've been carrying that for 4 years." A woman wrote, "My therapist used my grief against me. I left feeling more broken than I started. But your fight reminded me I'm allowed to protect myself." I read them all, every word, and I replied to each one. Sometimes with just a sentence, sometimes more, but always with this: you are not crazy. You are not weak. You were just targeted by someone who bet on your silence. And now, we are not silent anymore. It was early spring when she came. I was repairing the fence behind my cabin, sleeves rolled, hands covered in soil and cedar. I looked up and saw the car silver. The same one she used to drive when she wore summer dresses and left the windows open for the breeze. Kelsey stepped out. Alone. Her hair was longer. Her face softer, like life had finally landed on her skin. She stood still for a while before speaking. "I heard about Belle," she said. I did not reply. I wanted to say, "I am sorry." Not for what happened. You already know that part. But for who I became to make it happen. I kept working. Silence stretched between us like wire. "I thought I was strong," she said, voice cracking. "But really, I was just pretending harder than you." I paused, looked at her. "You were never weak," I said. "You were just dishonest." "That is not the same." She nodded, eyes brimming. "Can I ask you something?" "Go ahead." "Do you still hate me?" I exhaled slow. "I do not hate you. I just do not need you anymore." She closed her eyes, swallowed hard, and turned back to the car. This time, she did look back, but I was already facing the horizon again. 1 year later, the world is quieter now. I live simply. I eat slower. I smile when I do not mean to. I sleep without checking the door twice. That is what peace feels like. It is not loud. It is not a victory march. It is a deep breath that finally goes all the way down. One afternoon, I walked into a local bookstore and saw a table labeled "True Stories of Survival and Justice." One title caught my eye, "The Therapist Trap: How One Man Exposed the Lie." Carol had published it. Our case. My case. The names changed, but not the truth. And inside the first page was the dedication. "For the ones who were told they were broken, this is proof that you were never the problem." I bought 2 copies. One for me, and one for whoever comes next. Because the real lesson in all this? Healing does not begin when others say sorry. It begins when you stop blaming yourself for what they did to you. It begins when you stop giving people discounts on your dignity. And now, I will ask you, have you ever been betrayed by someone who smiled while doing it? Have you ever questioned your own sanity just because they swore it was all in your head? Tell me, where are you watching this story from? Drop it in the comments. I really want to know. And if this story hit you somewhere real, give it a like. Subscribe so you never miss another truth bomb wrapped in a revenge thriller. And share it with someone who needs to remember they are not alone. We will meet again in the next epic tale of betrayal, justice, and survival. Until then, take care of your mind. Take care of your truth. And never let anyone rewrite your story for you.